The Zoom notification hit her phone at 12:04 a.m. Urgent HR matter. Elena was still in a silk blouse, barefoot in her kitchen, wine untouched, her eyes locked on the rolling time zones of Tokyo and Seoul glowing on her second monitor. She had just sent final terms for $350 million Asia-Pacific expansion, a deal she had midwifed from Vapor. Last Slack message read, client's chief legal signed off on Clause 9. Let's go, and then this. She clicked the link with the mechanical precision of a surgeon opening a ribcage. The screen loaded, 4 squares, no greetings. Hi, Elena, came the brittle voice of someone from HR she vaguely remembered from ethics training. Her camera was on. Theirs were not. Legal sat there like a taxidermied parrot in a corner square. And then him, new VP of Global Partnerships. The guy who once introduced himself by bragging about his podcast downloads. Elena, he began, this is going to be a tough conversation. The HR rep jumped in like a scripted hostage video. As of tonight, you're being formally offboarded as part of a strategic restructuring. She didn't hear the rest. Her ears rang. The blood in her arms ran backwards. Her cursor hovered over the leave button like it could fix this. He felt the weird, humiliating sweat start pooling under her jaw. You're terminating me while I'm mid-negotiation on an international contract. The VP cleared his throat like he was about to pitch her a Peloton bike. We'll take it from here. You've been an asset, but the transition needs fresh eyes. She caught her own reflection in the screen, perfect eyeliner, calm shoulders, betrayal blooming behind her sternum. She blinked once. Twice. Her voice cracked. Just once. Then it iced over. Understood, she said, with a poise she didn't recognize. And then she hung up. Just a quick note here, because if you're still reading this, you're clearly someone who appreciates a real story. I'm trying to reach my first 10K subscribers. It's free, it helps more than you know, and trust me, what's coming next. You don't want to miss it. She sat in silence. No sobbing, just the hollow sound of her career slamming into a wall built by LinkedIn idiots who thought charisma was a KPI. She refreshed her inbox, access denied. Slack, disabled. Internal CRM, locked, by 12:11 a.m. She was already irrelevant to the company she bled for. And yet her pulse had slowed. Not panic, not even rage, something colder. She reached into the top drawer of her desk and pulled out an old Moleskine journal, the kind she always carried on flights. Inside, scribbled diagrams, phone numbers with time zone annotations, deal fragments that had once been called Elena's empire. She flipped to the back where a small sticky note marked a date, October 3rd, 2023. She opened her file cabinet, second drawer from the bottom, past old travel receipts and stock grant docs. There it was, a dull gray fireproof envelope, sealed, her initials on the wax. She pulled it out, laid it flat on the desk, and exhaled for the first time in 5 minutes. If the idiots on that call thought they'd just removed her from her life's work with a copy-paste HR script, they were about to learn what she'd learned growing up one paycheck from eviction. Always have a plan B. And if plan B tickets notarized in 2 countries and countersigned by a legal firm in Singapore, even better. Elena sat at her desk, motionless, except for her hand reflexively tapping the trackpad. She refreshed her inbox out of habit. Session expired. Again, access revoked. It was like watching the oxygen leave a room, slowly at first, then all at once. Slack booted her out next. CRM froze. The digital scaffolding she'd spent 8 years building, gone with the click of a mouse by someone who probably thought BCC was a cryptocurrency. She leaned back in her chair and stared at the screen. Personal email pinged. One new message, time-stamped 12:23 a.m. Subject line, a PAC transition notice. It was from him. The VP, Gavin or Garrett, or one of those names that sounds like a prescription for erectile dysfunction, had sent an email to the global partners with the subject, introducing your new point of contact. The body was almost poetic in its incompetence. Dear esteemed partners, as part of a strategic pivot, be taking over for Elena in all matters related to our ongoing discussions. Look forward to a synergistic partnership. Let's circle back soon. No mention of her full name, no understanding of Clause 12b, no clue about the cultural etiquette of addressing a Korean conglomerate without honorifics. Just vibes. Corporate improv theater performed by a man who once said, we should gamify the Q4 roadmap. Elena read the email once. Then again. Secondhand shame crawled under her skin like ants in a power suit. A minute later, her phone buzzed. Not from her old company, of course not. It was from Minjun, her counterpart at Donghee Group. A single message. Who is this? 3 words, that was it. No punctuation. No greeting. Just confusion that cut deeper than the termination call ever could. She'd spent years building that relationship. Flying coach in middle seats, dinners with CEOs who didn't trust Americans, midnight translation calls, and it was unraveling in real time because some podcast bro in a Patagonia vest decided her work was expendable. She typed back, slowly, carefully, "I no longer represent the firm. I'm sorry for the abrupt change." Read, then nothing. No reply, no angry emojis, no scheduled follow-up. Just corporate silence. And that silence hurt worse than any insult. Silence meant uncertainty. Silence meant loss. Elena stood up, her knees trembled. She wasn't crying, but she was close. She walked to the kitchen, poured herself the wine she never touched earlier, and took a sip. It tasted metallic, bitter, wrong. She opened her phone's gallery, scrolled to a screenshot from 6 months ago. A selfie with the Donghi execs at a karaoke bar, all of them laughing off-key after closing the Phase I pilot deal. Her in the middle, holding a mic and grinning like she'd finally made it. That picture didn't belong to them. Not anymore. She closed the gallery. Her laptop still sat open, its blue light casting cold shadows on her now empty desk. She looked at it, not with grief, with something harder. They thought they could erase her in a memo, but they forgot what she'd buried, and what she was about to unearth. The lockbox was tucked behind a false wall panel in her bedroom closet, wedged between an old suitcase and a shoebox labeled Taxes 2017. Don't open unless audited. She hadn't touched it in months, maybe longer. Dust clung to the hinges like it was guarding secrets. Elena pried it open with the same hands that once signed million-dollar contracts and now trembled with something closer to hunger. Inside, 2 USB drives, a silk pouch with a jade charm from a client in Osaka, one thick folder bound with a red cord. No label, no logo, just a single post-it on the front in her handwriting, "Only if they get stupid." She smiled. God, she had known. Not exactly when, not exactly how. But she had known back when Garrett the VP was still just a LinkedIn request she'd ignored, and HR still smiled with both rows of teeth. She had felt the tremor in the air, the kind that comes before a demolition crew sets off the charges. She pulled the folder out and laid it flat on her coffee table. Page 1 was in English. Page 2, Korean. Page 3, Mandarin. The rest, airtight legalese wrapped in cross-border redundancy. All of it co-drafted by Donghi's own legal team a year ago when she'd floated the idea, just an idea at the time, that perhaps it would be wise to include an individual fallback clause in case of, quote, internal organizational volatility. Clause 19.4. If the signatory, Elena M. Ruiz, is removed, terminated, or otherwise obstructed during an active negotiation initiated under her consultancy license, EMR Global Solutions LLC, all prior agreements, terms, and attached rights shall revert to her entity as primary liaison. In other words, kick her out mid-deal, and the deal legally walks out with her. Her name, her consultancy. Not buried in footnotes, not speculative, signed, sealed, stamped with the Donghi Group seal and co-notarized in Seoul and New York. The company hadn't seen it because she hadn't needed it until now. It had always been a parachute she prayed she'd never pull. And tonight, she was not falling. She was pivoting. She pulled her laptop over, inserted one of the USB drives, and opened a folder titled RED Phoenix. Inside, annotated deal history, signed NDA timelines, email threads, and yes, a complete, time-stamped record of Elena's role in every strategic clause. Her paper trail wasn't a trail. It was a road, 6 lanes wide, freshly paved, and headed straight out of corporate oblivion. She opened a new email. To Minjun CC, Donghi legal subject, updated signatory path, contingency triggered. Her fingers flew, not frantic, not desperate, surgical. She attached the fallback contract. Added a brief explanation, iterated that this was not retaliation, not vengeance, simply enforcement of a clause they themselves had helped her draft. She even included a PDF of the original timeline with a calm little message at the bottom, continuity, nothing more. Before hitting send, she read the body of the email again, slowly. It was firm, fair, and fireproof. Then she hit send. She didn't sit back. She didn't exhale. She stood up, stretched her arms overhead, rolled her neck like a fighter between rounds. This wasn't a coup, it was a correction. Elena didn't even bother changing out of the blouse she'd worn to war. The silk was wrinkled, her collarbone bare and sharp in the low kitchen light, But there was a charge in the air now, like a storm snapping the power lines right before sunrise. She poured another half glass of wine, but this time it wasn't for drowning anything. It was for clarity. She opened Signal. Not Slack, not Teams, not email. The real line, the one she reserved for real relationships. Minjun's contact lit up immediately, not a green dot, just a name, that was enough. She typed without preamble, "I need to speak. Privately, this is not a drill." The typing dots came fast, disappeared, returned. Voice or message? Message. Safer. She took a deep breath, then did what she always did best, told the truth with scalpel precision. She outlined the event. Midnight HR ambush, corporate reorg, the replacement of her with someone who spelled liaison wrong in his calendar invites. She attached the alternative contract, gave the page number, cited the clause, offered context, not excuses. She ended with, "All I ask is this, honor what we built, not the title I carried." Then she waited. The wine sat untouched. The clock on the stove blinked 1:42 a.m., 5 minutes, 10, 15, then Signal lit up. In Jun, we suspected something was off. He sent a meme in the first email, a meme. She stared, blinking. Then a second message followed, "We prefer working with you directly anyway." And just like that, her lungs remembered how to breathe. She let out a sound halfway between a laugh and a sob, barely audible, like air escaping a sealed jar. She set the wine down, unopened again, and leaned her forehead against the cabinet above her stove. Cold wood, warm throat, feet bare on tile she hated but never had time to replace. This was happening, really happening. Another message came in, "Our legal will send confirmation in the morning. We will initiate updates on documentation immediately. Is your LLC ready to receive wire transfer data?" She smiled, slow and dangerous. It's always been ready. There was no dopamine rush, no screaming or fist pumping. That would come later. Maybe. For now, there was something else, older, heavier, more earned, smoldering confidence. The kind that only comes when someone tries to bury you and ends up digging their own grave with a corporate shovel. She didn't reply immediately. Let them sit in that final message. Instead, she opened a clean notebook, labeled a new page client redirection, and underlined it twice. Then she drew a slow, careful line through the name of her former company. Not with anger, not even sadness, just finality. By sunrise, vultures were already circling. Only this time, they were blindfolded, pecking wildly at air. At 7:03 a.m., the former company's shared inbox received its first jolt, a terse bounce back from Donghee's legal team. This address is no longer recognized as an authorized liaison. 10 minutes later, the follow-up call Garrett scheduled, titled "Let's Sync on APAC Synergies," was declined without reason. No alternate times offered. No polite delay. A silence, that jagged corporate kind. The kind that usually precedes funerals. In the boardroom, coffee grew cold fast. "Have they responded to the MOU update?" someone asked. "No," came the reply from legal. There, radio silent. Garrett fumbled with his iPad, sweat collecting at the base of his collar like a cheap cologne. He clicked into the group chat with the C-suite. "Anyone here from Elena?" There's a weird clause popping up in their outbound messages. The COO responded with a screenshot of a Korean press release translation. Donghee reaffirms commitment to established consultant, documentation transition underway. Garrett stared at it like it had been written in Martian. Meanwhile, in her quiet downtown apartment, Elena sat at her kitchen table, a stack of crisp white papers in front of her. No music played, no TV, just the soft sound of the notary's pen gliding across the final line of her name. Elena M. Ruiz, Principal Operator, EMR Global Solutions LLC. The woman notarizing barely blinked. "You prepared, huh?" Elena gave a soft smile. "I've been preparing since they called me non-essential." She tucked the signed contract into a folio, attached the legal advisement packet, slid a duplicate flash drive into the sleeve. Then she stood, slipped on her blazer, walked the sealed documents to the courier waiting by the lobby door. By the time Garrett was pacing the corner of the 21st floor, with his tie already loosened, Elena was confirming overseas delivery receipts. Her lawyer, crisp and caffeinated, fired the email to Donghee's legal counsel. Attached are notarized documents reflecting formal activation of contingency clause 19.4 per international arbitration guidelines. All transitional authority has been verified. Miss Ruiz is now primary liaison, not dramatic, not scorched earth, just process. Back at the company, the HR lead asked the room, "Wait, did anyone vet the international clauses in the original partner agreement?" Silence. No one had. Someone muttered, "I thought legal said it was boilerplate." Legal replied, deadpan, "Apparently, it was a boilerplate we never read." The room filled with a noise that wasn't quite yelling, not quite whisper either. Panic, but wearing a tie. People blaming inboxes, auditing folders, checking Slack messages Elena had sent 6 months ago that were now suspiciously deleted. Garrett sat, blinking hard at his screen. The cursor pulsed over the name Elena Ruiz. His fingers hovered uselessly, as if he might summon her back by typing her initials fast enough. But the deal had moved on, and so had she. Justice didn't roar. It didn't wear capes. It arrived with stamped documents and impossible calm. At 2:47 a.m. Eastern Time, while most of the city clung to unconscious dreams and digital ghosts, the servers at the International Trade Registry in Brussels spun to life with a quiet hum. Under the flicker of fluorescent lights, an automated queue process document, hash 547,191B, a pack trade expansion, signatory update US, region. Just like that, the world changed. The name of her former company, once proudly affixed to every page of the $350 million deal, vanished from the registry's official signatory field. In its place, Elena M. Ruiz, underneath it in bold, EMR Global Solutions LLC, authorized U.S. liaison, direct representative, beneficiary of performance equity. No press release. No announcement. Just a shift so subtle it didn't ring alarms yet. But to anyone watching closely, the coordinates of power had just shifted under their feet like tectonic plates. Elena didn't sleep that night. Not out of stress, those hours were over, but because sleep was a luxury you don't indulge when your entire life is recalibrating like a guided missile. Instead, she sat curled in her window chair with a cup of black tea cooling beside her, watching the quiet flicker of the global update dashboard she'd always kept bookmarked but never dared touch. It had always belonged to them, until it didn't. No celebratory emails, no champagne selfies, no LinkedIn humblebrags laced in corporate jargon like honored, grateful, or humbled to announce. She didn't need a post. The contract was the announcement. Her only message went to one person, Minjun. Update confirmed. Transition complete. His reply came within minutes, time-stamped just after 3:00 a.m. You earned this. No one else could have. She stared at that sentence for a long time. Then she muted her notifications, opened a blank page in her legal ledger, and began outlining phase Roman II of the partnership under her own header this time. Her terms, her roadmap, her budget forecasts, all of it branded, not borrowed. Back at her old company, things were quieter, not peaceful. Dead quiet. Legal hadn't shown up for the 8 a.m. update call. Garrett hadn't posted a single thing on Slack since 6 p.m. the night before. And the CMO, usually the first to retweet announcements, was last seen hovering outside the CEO's office looking pale. They hadn't figured it out yet, but they would. They always do, just after the last domino falls. Meanwhile, Elena's inbox pinged. Wire transfer confirmation tranche 1 of 4, processed successfully. She leaned back in her chair, eyes closed, the early morning breeze threading through the window like silk. No smile, just breathe, slow, grounded. This wasn't revenge. It was reclamation. And it had arrived not with fireworks but with filings. At precisely 8:02 a.m., the CEO's phone buzzed 5 times in a row on the marble nightstand beside his bed. He blinked into the light, expecting a calendar alert, maybe a ping from his executive assistant. Instead, his eyes locked onto a headline that slapped harder than any hangover. Independent consultant secures $350 million trade agreement. Donghe partnership reassigned amid U.S. Shake-up, he sat up, fast enough to spill the overpriced vitamin water onto his duvet. His thumb scrolled through the article with increasing dread. There, black and white text that every subscriber to Global Tech Insider would see over their breakfast. Former corporate liaison Elena M. Ruiz, now operating under EMR Global Solutions LLC, has been confirmed as the official U.S. signatory on the APAC expansion deal with Donghe Group, according to international filings submitted overnight. Sources close to the negotiation site, a contingency clause triggered by internal reorganization. Stomach dropped. A clause? What clause? He threw on a hoodie and padded barefoot into his home office, slamming open his laptop. Slack had imploded, 20 unread pings from legal, all caps. Email was worse. Half the messages in the C-suite thread carried subject lines like WTF, is this, and urgent response needed now. The company's PR director had already posted a now-deleted tweet claiming strong continued partnership with Donghee Group. The tweet's comment section had been flooded with screenshots of the registry update showing Elena's LLC as sole signatory. Verified, filed, timestamped, irrefutable. A group email from Donghee's legal counsel arrived at 8:11 a.m. We will no longer require liaison through company name. Future communications will be directed exclusively to Ms. Ruiz. Please do not contact our leadership team further regarding this matter. That was it. No negotiations, no appeals, just exile. The PR team began drafting a statement, frantically trying to spin it as a collaborative leadership transition. Garrett tried emailing Elena directly, only to receive a bounce back that read, "This address no longer accepts communication from the company name domain." Inside the building, panic spread like a slow gas leak. People whispered outside glass offices. Executive assistants made eye contact, shook their heads. Eagle reviewed her original contract 3 times over before declaring, voice cracking, "The clause is real. It's binding. It's already been executed internationally." There was no loophole, no arbitration delay, no friendly judge they could lean on with golf invites and corporate dinners. She had filed it like a surgeon sets a bone, clean, decisive, irreversible. By 9 a.m., even the junior staff knew. Whispers in the hallway. She took the whole deal. Wait, Elena, did you see the wire transfer volume? Jesus. And still, Elena said nothing. No statement, no denial, not even a petty tweet. She didn't need to. She was already moving on with their crown jewel under her arm, and for the first time in years, the CEO felt something heavier than ego in his chest. Loss. The key turned with a soft click. No cheering. No ribbon cutting. Just a hollow office echoing with fresh paint and potential. Lena stepped over the threshold of her new headquarters, EMR Global Solutions, etched in understated gold on the frosted glass panel beside the entrance. Her heels clicked softly against the polished concrete floor, the only sound in a space built for a different kind of noise. Meetings that mattered, decisions that stuck, futures she owned. She stood still for a moment, hand still on the doorknob, just absorbing it. No fluorescent hum. No fake plants, no passive-aggressive plaques about synergy. Just silence, her silence. The windows were massive, floor-ceiling, the kind that overlooked the skyline like it was an old friend she finally had time to talk to. Sunlight spilled across the matte black desk already pre-wired for her workstation. On it sat a single envelope, hand-delivered at dawn. She opened it carefully. Wire confirmation, $87,500,000, tranche 1 of 4. Didn't feel like a windfall. It felt like a refund, an overdue correction. She set the paper down, walked into the small kitchen space, and brewed a cup of coffee. No assistants, no interns, no whispered conversations about who was getting axed next. Just the low murmur of beans grinding and water heating, simple, direct, unmistakably hers. She took her mug to the balcony and watched the city wake up beneath her. Somewhere across town, the new VP, Garrett, one who once tried to explain networking to her like she hadn't single-handedly built 3 continents worth of partnerships, was escorted out of the building. HR called it a realignment. Internally, it was a mercy kill. He didn't even make it to Q2. The CEO issued a statement by noon. 3 sentences, no names, just vague apologies about unexpected transitional complexities and a pledge to learn from this moment. No one bought it. No one cared. Investors whispered. Clients hesitated. The firm that fired Elena while she was closing the most important deal of the decade was now leaking credibility like a cracked pipe. Meanwhile, she finished her coffee. A knock came at the office door, her new operations director, arriving early. She waved them in without words and handed over the keys to the server room. They were already 3 days into planning their next expansion. Australia was on the table. Eastern Europe had reached out. Elena didn't need revenge, she needed momentum. She walked back to her desk, opened her laptop, and signed into a platform that bore her name on every dashboard. A system she designed, a pipeline she built, a signature that meant something now because it didn't come with a company logo over it, it was the logo. She paused and looked around once more, not to admire, not to gloat, just to absorb, because this wasn't the climax of a battle. It was the start of uninterrupted ownership. She whispered one word under her breath, not as a boast, but as a confirmation. Mine. Appreciate you sticking around, you wise old rebels. Smash that subscribe button, or this fossil might just cause another epic fiasco.